Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into this really fascinating, honestly kind of shocking historical paradox. For centuries, women were almost entirely excluded from public life, right? But, and here's the crazy part, the physical bodies of these very same women actually became ground zero for some of history's biggest revolutions.
Okay, let's dive into this. The Roman historian Titus Livius literally hit the nail on the head when he said women had no voice in public life or politics, yet the biggest revolutions and wars sprang from their bodies. It's a really powerful premise. If we want to understand regime change, we have to look at how a society treats its most vulnerable, yet symbolically powerful members.
Part 1. The female body and political transformations. To really grasp this, we kind of have to completely shift our modern perspective.
Back in ancient times, an outrage against a woman wasn't just seen as a private, personal tragedy. Not at all. It was viewed as a direct assault on the state itself and its shared moral compass. Violating a woman's honor basically shattered the societal contract, and whenever rulers forgot this absolutely crucial rule, empires crumbled.
Which brings us to Part 2, Lucretia and the Birth of the Roman Republic. Now, what's really interesting here is how one single tragic event in the 6th century BC completely rewrote Western history.
So imagine this. During a military siege, a prince named Sextus becomes totally obsessed with the virtuous Lucretia, who actually won a debate among the princes about whose wife was the most virtuous simply by spinning wool. Sextus sneaks into her room and he threatens to frame her in this horrible scandal with his slave unless she submits to him. To prevent her tragedy from ever being used as a precedent for vice, Lucretia calls her family together, and then, heartbreakingly, she takes her own life with a dagger.
And the pacing of what happens next is just breathtaking. Brutus literally pulls that very dagger from her, swearing vengeance. In a matter of hours, furious crowds seize the palace. Within days, the entire monarchy falls. The Roman Republic is literally born from the ashes of this one woman's tragedy. It's like a spark hitting a powder keg.
Moving right along to Part 3, Virginia and the End of Tyranny. Fast forward about 60 years after the fall of the monarchy, and Rome is suffering under this authoritarian council known as the Decemvirs, or the 10 Men.
You've got Appius Claudius, who basically embodies absolute, unchecked corruption, refusing to step down, hoarding power. On the flip side, you have Virginia, the completely innocent, engaged daughter of a respected soldier. Claudius wants her, and when his advances fail, he uses the absolute power of the state to just try and take her.
It's incredibly corrupt. Claudius fakes a claim that she's his escaped slave, and get this, he presides as the judge in his own fake court. Realizing there is absolutely no justice to be found, her father does the unthinkable. He heartbreakingly stabs Virginia himself to guarantee her freedom. And that tragic sacrifice, it immediately sparks a massive, violent military revolt.
The result of that uprising was the absolute end of the 10 Men's rule. Claudius is arrested and ends up dying in a prison cell. Once again, a ruler's sheer arrogance toward a woman's body shattered the social contract, triggering a total regime change.
Part 4. Similar incidents in Islamic history. Let's shift gears and look at how this builds across different cultures, because this really proves it's a universal historical phenomenon.
For example, in early Yathrib, historical texts tell us about a Jewish goldsmith who violated a Muslim woman's modesty. She cried out for help, and the prophet responded to her plea. This ultimately led to the Banu Kainuka tribe being expelled from the capital. Now, historians do debate some of the exact specifics of this narrative, but the thematic core we're looking at remains exactly the same.
Part 5. The Cry of Wa Mutasima and the Changing Map. Let's jump to the 3rd century AH during the Abbasid Empire, where a single desperate voice sparks a massive geopolitical conflict.
So during a Byzantine incursion, a Muslim woman who was facing capture screamed out this desperate plea, Wa Mutasima, or O Mutasim. She was calling directly upon the Abbasid Caliph, and that single cry echoed all the way to the capital, catalyzing an overwhelming empire-wide military response.
And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of the objective equivalent. See, to avenge her honor, the caliph didn't just attack anywhere. He specifically targeted Amorium, the very birthplace of the Byzantine emperor's dynasty. It was the ultimate symbolic retaliation.
The scale of this response was staggering. A massive Islamic army mobilized, penetrating deep into Central Asia Minor, right up to the southeastern doors of Europe near Constantinople. Just think about that.
One woman's cry for dignity completely altered the geopolitical map of the era.
Which brings us to part 6, the body as a symbol of state honor. Bringing all these historical case studies together really reveals a powerful, recurring mechanism in our political history.
Across vastly different empires, from Rome to the Abbasid Caliphate, the female body wasn't just physical, it was the ultimate symbol of the state's moral integrity and honor. Violating that boundary meant destroying the foundational trust of society, and as we've seen time and time again, that invariably led to war or revolution.
Empires fall, but human nature, well, that pretty much remains the same. So, what does this all mean for us? How does the intersection of personal dignity and political legitimacy continue to shape the shifting borders of our world today? When we look at modern uprisings, are we still hearing the echoes of Lucretia? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.